Hello, everyone. This is a follow-up video to the series of videos of my trip to Serbia that I recently uploaded. I wanted to do a final commentary video like this, a vlog-style video like this with me talking to the camera as I am, because I still had some things to say about Serbia, kind of closing remarks, if you will. But the funny thing is, my camera broke at exactly the right time, or I don't know, the wrong time. Well, I guess you can say it was exactly the right time because it was literally at the very end, at the very last thing that I was filming. If you watch the very last Serbia video that I posted, at the very end, I'm filming Tito's tomb. And I say at the beginning of that segment, I don't know if my camera is working now because my viewfinder has stopped responding. On the camera there's a little screen that shows you what you're filming, and that had suddenly stopped working. So I wasn't sure if the camera was working at all because the screen was just, it was showing some strange pattern like when the LCD breaks. But I don't think the LCD was broken because when I stopped filming, suddenly the screen started working again. But then when I turned the camera off, it wouldn't turn back on anymore. So the camera is really just somehow there's some, I guess, some logic failure in one of the circuit boards or something. It doesn't turn on at all now. Or when you try to turn it on, it clicks for a moment. There's the sound of the lens trying to move. And then just suddenly the whole thing shuts off. So it's really shot now. Some people are probably happy about that because on pretty much every video that I've posted with that camera, somebody's complained about the video quality and said that the video is interlaced, or the video quality is just poor, or the colors are off, or whatever. I mean, I know the video quality from that camera is not the best. I know it's not HD video. I always thought it was good enough for me. I guess I'm not that picky when it comes to video. I mean, it's not, it's not movie quality, but I'm not making movies. I'm just making some home videos of my travels here and there, so I didn't think it was that big a deal. But people always complain and say, well, your camera's terrible, get a better camera. So some people might be happy because that camera is finally broken and I won't be using it anymore. But I mean, honestly, that set of videos on Serbia is probably the last travel video that I'll ever upload because I'm pretty much out of interesting places to go to. I've been to pretty much everywhere in Europe by now, and I haven't made any videos of the more popular places. The exception being Paris. Paris is special, so Paris is something very special, so I wanted to make a video of that. But I mean, when I was in the Netherlands and Belgium, when I was in Italy, when I was in Scandinavia, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, I didn't make any videos because I thought, hey man, these countries are so popular, everybody loves these countries, and everybody knows these countries already. I can't really add anything to them. There's not much I can say about these countries that hasn't already been said. Serbia is very different. The reason I filmed so much of Serbia, I think I probably filmed more of Serbia than any other country I've been to. And the reason I filmed so much of Serbia is not because it's so popular, but for exactly the opposite reason, because there's so little of it on the internet. So I tried to film as much of Serbia as I could while I was there. And I mean, of course, I didn't film everything. There's a lot of stuff that I didn't see or didn't do in Belgrade. I mean, there's a zoo in Belgrade, and zoos are always nice. There's a cemetery in Belgrade. Some people like cemeteries. I like cemeteries. I think they're sometimes very nice to walk through. But that's more stuff that a zoo is something more that you get more from the experience being there in person, and it doesn't say very much about the city itself. I wanted to get more about what's unique about the everyday city life in Belgrade, and that's not necessarily something you get from a zoo where you're just looking at the animals. I do like zoos, but I don't think they're that culturally relevant. And what I really want to get was the culture of Serbia. So anyway, so I'm filming here now with just the webcam on my laptop. So I don't think the video quality here is significantly better. In fact, it may be even worse than that handheld camera that I was using. But what can I say? I don't have anything else right now, and yeah, I mean, I'm just talking to the camera here, so I hope it's not a big deal. I hope that I'm not going to get millions of complaints from people saying, "Oh no, your video quality is so terrible." I'm probably, quite honestly, I'm probably not going to be posting a lot more videos on this channel. I think this channel has kind of had its run. I mean, I started this channel um, when I first moved to Russia, which was, gosh, 7 years ago. Is that right? I went there in like the middle of 2011. So yeah, 7.5 years ago. Wow. So yeah, I got the camera back then just to document that, and I've used it since then for various other trips that I've taken and things like that. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much done. I've pretty much filmed all that I want to film at this point and said all I want to say. So I'm probably this. I think this channel has kind of run its limit of what it's useful for. I may still occasionally post videos now and then about me talking about whatever, but I don't think it's going to be a very frequent thing. So anyway, so what did I want to say about Serbia? I wanted to summarize my feelings and opinions about Serbia and my time in Serbia. Again, I come back to that piece of graffiti which I saw, I think twice, which says "Serbia Srbimi," Serbia for the Serbs. Now, I don't want to read too much into what is, after all, just graffiti. I mean, somebody wrote it. It might have even been the same person, because I think those two instances of that phrase were in relatively close geographic proximity to each other, so they may very well have been sprayed there by the same person, expressing their own personal political sentiments or whatever. But I mean, I think there is some truth to that idea, to the idea that Serbs want their country to be for themselves. They want to keep Serbia for themselves, and they don't want to internationalize or globalize the way a lot of Western countries are doing. And honestly, I understand that. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. Some people say that it's racist. It's exclusive. You don't want foreigners in your country. But I don't see it as necessarily racist. It's not necessarily. I mean, it's not just that they're against a certain race of people. It's just that they have their own culture, their own way of life, and they want to preserve that. They want to be with people who have that same sort of shared cultural awareness, which is something that you'd only get if you grew up in Serbia. So I can understand that. And Serbia is fairly insular in several different ways. I mean, first of all, it's a difficult country to get to, just in terms of traveling there. It's difficult because there are many mountains. I mean, the southern part of the country is very mountainous, as is most of the Balkan Peninsula. There are not a lot of flights that go there. Not a lot of buses. In fact, the south is much worse. So northern Serbia borders Hungary, and so you can take buses from Hungary. There are also flights that go into the Belgrade airport, but the Belgrade airport is the only real airport in Serbia. The only other international airport that operates at all in Serbia is the one in Niš in the south, and that has only like a very small handful of flights that fly there. So the Belgrade airport, I mean, even Novi Sad, the second largest country in the city, got that reversed, the second largest city in the country, Novi Sad, there's no airport there. The closest airport to Novi Sad is the Belgrade airport. So if you want to go to Novi Sad, you have to fly to Belgrade and then take a bus or a train from there. So, the country is not well connected with the outside world. It's not well connected with other countries. And again, that's, just reflective of the fact that not a lot of people are going there. Not a lot of people are leaving there. And why not? I mean, if they want to keep it that way, then why shouldn't they? That's their option. I personally don't have a problem with that, and I don't see why other people should. Yeah, the country is kind of difficult to travel around. Again, especially in the south, because of the mountains. The south also has very bad soil. That's another thing that characterizes a lot of the Balkan Peninsula. the soil is not good for growing crops. So the south is not even agriculturally productive. At least the north, in northern Serbia and Vojvodina, you kind of have soil that's okay. It's this you can grow crops there, and there are a lot of farmers' fields there and things like that. So that at least is agriculturally fruitful. The south is really it's quite a bit worse in many ways. Um, because it has no industry. It doesn't have much industry. I mean, if you can't even grow things there, then there's not much left except industry. And industry was very overemphasized during the communist times when Serbia was part of communist Yugoslavia. And there is still some industry left. I mean, there are still a lot of light industrial shops and factories in Serbia, but I think the country's lost a lot of that since the end of communism. So yeah, the country doesn't really have a lot. There's not really a very strong economy in any regard there. I mean, the traditional three sectors of the economy, the first one's agriculture. Like I said, there's some of that in the north, not much in the south. Industry, yeah, there's still some, and then services. Serbia is nominally also a services-based country. Like, I think more than 50% of the workforce is employed in the services industry. So in that sense, it's already post-industrial. But it definitely doesn't look post-industrial when you're there. It still feels like a very industrial place. Um, but I mean, if I think about other people going to Serbia, like, foreigners like myself going to Serbia, I keep asking myself the question in my head, what brings you back to a country? Or maybe I should phrase the question differently. When you've been to a country, you kind of should ask yourself the question, would I want to go back? And then I guess the follow-up question to that is, what brings you back? What would motivate you to go back to a specific country after you've already been there? Um, and every country that you want to go back to has something. I mean, it may just be the atmosphere, it may just be the style of the people. It may even be as such a small thing as you liked a particular restaurant or shop there. Um, I mean, you may not go out of your way to go back to a place if there's just one restaurant that you really liked there. But but it is still something that you might go back for. I mean, you might say, well, maybe someday if I'm in that city again, maybe I'll check out that restaurant because I really like their food. But for me, for Serbia, there wasn't really any of that stuff. I mean, my time in Serbia was not bad at all. It certainly, I didn't have any negative experiences in Serbia at all. It was mostly a quite positive experience there. I mean, the people were nice. Some of the architecture was nice, and it wasn't terribly poor. Standard of living is obviously not the same as in Western Europe, but it wasn't that bad. I didn't have the sense of being in a terrible slum where everything is so awful. I mean, the city center of Belgrade's actually quite nice. It's quite modern. It feels like any other European city with a shopping district and nice stores. It doesn't look poor. It doesn't look run down. So I mean, it's fine. But there's just nothing really there that would bring me back. I mean, there's not much that would give me a strong cause to go back to Serbia. I mean, even if you think about the bookstores, one thing that I always love, I think some of you have noticed, if a lot of you who have been watching my videos for a long time probably know I love bookstores. It's one of my favorite things to check out when I travel anywhere. And the bookstores in Serbia, they're not bad. There are a lot of them. I mean, there are quite a lot of bookstores in Belgrade, in the in the city center. But I didn't really like the bookstores there, to be honest. They're all very similar. They all kind of are selling the same books, which is kind of common. I mean, often you get that where you just go to one bookstore after another, and they're all kind of selling the same books, just whatever books are popular now. But I mean, there are three main problems with the bookstores in Serbia, and I guess there's similar problems that you get in many different places. But the three main problems are, first of all, the bookstores are mostly very small. They're pretty much all just one room. I saw some bookstores, I think the biggest bookstore I saw there had one main room, and then on the side there was a small room, like a small little, side room, and then upstairs, if you went up the staircase, there was like a half, like a mezzanine there with a couple of racks of books. And I think that was the biggest bookstore that I found there. So the bookstores are almost universally very small. They're just like one room, which is not a lot. And the second problem is not just that almost all the books are in Serbian. So that's one problem. The books are almost exclusively in Serbian. Some bookstores have a small selection of English books, but it's really like a very small, like a very small selection of English books, and there's nothing in other languages. I didn't find anything in languages like French or German, Spanish, Italian, whatever. Um, but it's not only the language. I mean, I understand. Okay, you're in Serbia. Most people probably speak Serbian as their main language. It makes sense to have books in the Serbian language, right? That part makes sense. But what really kind of mm, uh, bothered me, I guess you could say a bit, is most of the books were on Serbian things. So the history section was almost entirely on the history of Serbia or particular Serbian figures, politicians or artists or whatever. And then, the same with, politics. It's mostly the politics of Serbia. And you can say, again, that makes sense because you're in Serbia, right? Well, I guess it makes a certain sense, but in whatever country I live in, regardless of what country I personally live in or consider home, I think there is a certain value in being aware of other countries' history as well and other countries' culture and politics. I mean, you don't have to know it in very great detail, but I think there is value in knowing some of it. And I did think it was just a bit strange that there was very little in Serbian bookstores in the way of world history, world figures, anything like that. It was all just almost entirely Serbian stuff, which again takes me back to the idea that, yeah, the Serbs want to keep their country for themselves. They're very insular and they want their country to be for themselves, which is not bad if they want it that way. I mean, if the Serbs really want to live that way, if they want their country to be that way, then it's not bad. I'm not saying that I'm not criticizing them for that specifically, but it just, to somebody who is not Serbian, it does seem a bit, again, it's kind of like you get the sense of, well, what am I doing here then? I mean, if I'm not a Serb, then I probably don't belong here. And then the third problem I have with the bookstores is, again, a problem that I have with probably most bookstores. The categories of the books are mostly there are three main categories. Either the books are entertaining fiction, so stuff like Harry Potter. I admit I'm quite elitist when it comes to books. I don't like books that are just for fun. That probably sounds very judgmental and snobbish and elitist and whatever else. But there are so many storybooks that just want to tell an entertaining story, and I'm kind of done with that. I mean, I've read so many books already, which just want to tell a story. And yeah, I'm not against stories. Sometimes stories are entertaining, sure, but I want to get something out of a book. I want to read books that leave me with some kind of ideas or information or understanding that I didn't have before. I don't want to read a book just to be entertained, just to take up my time because I have nothing better to do. So I don't like books that are just murder mysteries, or something like that, where it's the whole point of the book is just the story, and when you're done, you didn't get anything out of it other than just an entertaining story. Again, I realize it sounds very. I'm sorry. I know it sounds quite judgmental. Some people are probably offended or upset, and they say, "Well, I read books like that all the time." Well, I don't mean it personally. If you like those kinds of books, I don't mean to insult you personally, but I get kind of annoyed at the fact that most books in most bookstores are of that type. And again, I don't want to just read a story. I want to get something useful, something that will kind of enrich me as a person out of a book. Um, Maybe I don't know if that's me being hypocritical or maybe if I don't know. Take that as you will. I mean, I'm trying not to be offensive with that, but I'm sure some people will think that it's very Anyway, so yeah, so the first category is again entertaining fiction. Second category is what they unashamedly call popular psychology, which I thought that popular psychology is actually a pejorative term, but apparently it isn't. Apparently it's the actual proper term. And popular psychology means stuff like how to lose weight in 2 weeks, or how to lose 20 pounds in 4 weeks, or something like that, or how to improve your love life, or how to feel better about yourself, stuff like that. Which again, in principle, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, sure, why not? Sure, if you can feel better about yourself, then why not? If you can get more physically fit, why not? Great idea, sure. But again, it's just the kind of books that I don't know. I tend to again, I know it sounds very elitist, but I tend to have a rather negative opinion of such books, because I think a lot of the time those books are just written to make people feel good, like they're written by people who just want to take your money for selling you something that makes you feel good. Like, you'll read something that says, "Hey, you can do it. Be motivated. Cheer up. Put a smile on your face." And they want you to pay $20 for a book that says something like that. Um, I realize, of course, some of the books contain useful information. Some of them contain real insights and things like that. It's not all just empty hot air, but I don't consider such books to be, serious literature or anything like that. I don't know, I'm kind of a philosophy snob. About 10 years ago or so, I started getting into what people call philosophy, and for better or for worse, it's probably made me quite arrogant. I mean, I don't try to be arrogant. I mean, I'm not trying to. I don't want people to feel bad for the kinds of books they read, or the decisions they make in their life. I mean, I'm not trying to put people down for reading books like that. I just, honestly, personally, I'm of the opinion that there's relatively little that people get out of reading those books, other than maybe just a momentary nice feeling. Maybe it makes you feel nice for a few minutes, and then you kind of forget about it. But I don't know. Again, that's just my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. And then the third category is books for children. And it really bothers me when I see that most places are primarily, most bookstores are primarily selling books for children, because it's like, okay, children's education is important. Of course, children should read books and get educated, learn things. But what about adults? Don't adults also need to learn things? Isn't it important for adults to also read books? And I see this pattern over and over again in so many different places, that people try to get children to read books, but when you're an adult or an adult, then you can just get drunk all the time and smoke cigarettes and watch trash TV, and then it's okay. As an adult, you're allowed to do that. That's okay. But children need to read. I don't see it that way. I don't think that adults are relieved of their responsibility to keep educating themselves. And, that doesn't mean you can't have fun. Of course, you can have fun once in a while, but I don't like it when I see this idea that reading books is kind of a children's thing and it's not for adults, which is something that often I get the feeling of in some dare I say, less developed countries. Again, I know that sounds very arrogant. Sorry. Again, I'm not trying to put people down. I'm just saying. Yeah, so I mean, in Serbia, I didn't really get the sense that books are important to Serbians. I mean, even there's a Belgrade city library. I ended up not filming it, but next to the Belgrade Fortress, actually, there's the Belgrade City Library, and it's so small. And I think it's the largest lending library in Serbia, but it's so small. Again, it's like one room. Um, I mean, it's a little larger than it's the one room is a little larger than a living room. It's not the size of like a probably your living room in your house. It's somewhat larger than that, but still, it's one room with maybe like 10 racks of books or so, and it's just so. It's kind of embarrassing actually. You know, it's like this is the city library. It's so small, and the books are kind of just not very good quality, and they're not well kept. So it's just I don't know. Having said that, though, again, I want to emphasize, you know, my experiences in Belgrade were not negative. My experiences in Belgrade were mostly very positive. Um, but again, what reason would I have to go back if I were to go back to Serbia? What would call me back there? What would bring me back there? I mean, I like the Serbian people. Serbs are they're very friendly. I mean, you know, they have that kind of they're very southern in the sense that they're very gregarious, which tends to be something more common to southern places as opposed to northern. They're very spirited. Again, you know, kind of a southern thing. So you know, they're very they're very friendly. They have a certain energy to them that you don't always see in other places. I mean, one thing that did happen to me several times when I was in Serbia is that random people on the street would just start saying something to me, which you know will happen in certain places, but not other places. I mean, it's something that might happen in. I don't know. It's something that's likely to happen in most Slavic countries because most Slavic countries have that kind of energy where people just on the street will just suddenly start saying something to each other. It's not as likely to happen in, let's say, Germany or England. You know, a total stranger in London or somewhere else in England is probably not going to come up to you and say, "Hey, buddy, how you doing? What's going on today? What's going on?" Which is something that might happen in Serbia. I don't know. I don't know what people were saying to me in Serbia because I don't speak Serbian. Um, so you know, I didn't try speaking with them. I mean, most people probably would have spoken English. I probably, if I had said I'm sorry, I don't speak Serbian, they might have repeated themselves in English. But I didn't really want to make them have to speak English with me because I don't think they were saying anything terribly important. Like it wasn't really a critical matter. I think they were just making conversation. So I didn't say I'm sorry. Do you speak English? I just kind of nodded and smiled, and or I would shrug and just you know not say anything. Um, because you know it's hard to make small talk in a language that's not your native language. I mean, they probably assumed that I was Serbian and that I would be able to answer them on the same level, which I couldn't. So rather than trying to force them to speak English, which would have been uncomfortable for them, I just kind of smiled and nodded and didn't say anything. So um, one thing that did surprise me about Serbia, most people there don't seem to speak Russian very well. I don't speak Russian very well, but I can say at least basic things in Russian. Um, and I did a few times try to say something in Russian to people, which I might have made some mistakes. I'm not confident that I spoke in Russian without making any errors, but I'm very sure that a Russian would have understood, even if I'd made some mistakes. I'm pretty sure that a Russian would have understood what I was trying to say. But the Serbs didn't. When I spoke Russian to them, they said, usually they would say to me in English, because they would realize that I didn't speak Serbian, they would say in English, I'm sorry, I don't understand what. So I ended up just speaking English to them when I had to say something. So yeah, it's kind of surprising. Because in Croatia, I think more people in Croatia speak Russian than in Serbia. Because I remember when I was in Croatia, very often I could speak Russian with people. Like people would think I was Russian because I guess I kind of look Russian. I don't know, or I guess they have a lot of Russian tourists there. That's probably the reason why. They probably have a lot of Russian tourists in Serbia, and I guess they thought I look Russian, and so they would speak Russian to me. And I would, you know, I would speak a little Russian to them as well, but then I would say, actually, I speak better English. So, you know, if you can speak English, which, you know, of course, people usually speak English. Um, so yeah, but yeah, a lot of people think that Serbian and Russian, that the languages are very related, which I guess they are. I mean, they're both Slavic languages, so they are related. I mean, I can understand some Serbian just because some of the words are similar, but they're not as similar as you might think. If you speak Russian, you won't you probably won't understand Serbian, and vice versa. Somebody who's Serbian probably won't understand you if you try to speak Russian to them. At least that was my experience. So yeah, yeah, and I mean, there's not a lot of diversity. There's not, in general, there's not a lot of signs of foreign influence in Serbia. Foreign influence is actually not true. There is a lot of foreign influence there. I guess what I mean is there's not a lot of foreign people, is what I should say. You don't see a lot of black people or Asian. I did see a few Asian people, but I think they were just tourists. I don't think they lived there. So I guess I guess that also counts. I mean, I guess foreign tourists counts, but I mean, I don't think there are a lot of people in Serbia living in Serbia who are not Serbs. I think even in Russia, you see more ethnic diversity than in Serbia, which is saying a lot, actually. Um, but yeah, foreign influences. Serbia is still a country that's kind of at the middle of a tug of war between the East and the West. I mean, I mentioned when I was in the Ušće shopping center, I was there at a t-shirt store, and I saw a. I talked about this in the video at the time, but I just retell it again because I thought it was so funny. It's just really like such a Kodak moment. There's a shirt with Putin, with a kind of like a drawing of. I don't think it was a photograph; it was a drawing of Putin wearing sunglasses, and Putin being all cool, like yeah, tough guy, Putin. But just as I saw the shirt, they were playing Lynyrd Skynyrd's Sweet Home Alabama on the music system. And I thought, here I am in a place, they're selling shirts with Putin on them, but Sweet Home Alabama is playing on the sound system. That's really, again, I might be reading too much into what was just, I mean, you can say it's just coincidence. I mean, that can kind of thing can happen anywhere. Sure, it can happen anywhere. But I think to me that sort of epitomized something of the sense of Serbia. It's not a country that's very good at holding a sense of itself because it does have a lot of foreign influence from the West and the East. There's a lot of influence from the United States and also Germany and other Western European countries. And then there's a lot of influence from Russia. So I think that in a sense, I want to say in a very real sense, I think Serbia's reaction to foreign influences is very understandable. I think that one of the reasons why they want to hold on to their country so strongly and why they want to, keep Serbia for the Serbs is because they do feel threatened. And I think that Serbia's reaction to Serbia's reaction to foreign influences, Serbia's reaction to globalization, internationalization, is very natural and very understandable for a small and vulnerable country that feels threatened, which is the case for Serbia. And you can compare that to a country like Germany. Germany famously took in close to 1 million refugees in the year 2015. Which was a controversial thing. I realize some people are not very happy about that, and they have reasons for not being very positive about that. But Germany is a much larger country. Germany has more than 80 million people, and geographically, of course, it's much larger. So, Germany is a much stronger country, not only economically and militarily and things like that, but also Germany has a world recognized culture. And I think you go almost anywhere in the world and people have an idea about what Germany is like and what Germans are like. Maybe they have a false idea. Maybe they all think that Germans are Nazis, or they think that all Germans are robots, like Kraftwerk or something like that, which of course is not true. Not all Germans are like that, but at least there is a German cultural identity which is recognized and more or less understood in most of the world. Same is true, of course, of France or England. I mean, you go pretty much anywhere in the world, people have an idea of what is it like in England, and maybe they only know stereotypes, but at least they still have an idea. They still have a sense of what's it like in England or France or Germany, which is not the case for Serbia. You go somewhere else in the world and say, hey, what do you think of Serbians? What do you think Serbia is like, or Serbian people are like? People say, Serbia, yeah, it's, I don't know. So, Serbia doesn't really have a globally recognized cultural identity. And I think, again, I think that's partly for that reason. It's very understandable that they're very skeptical of foreign influences and a little bit xenophobic. Not saying that xenophobia is a good thing, not saying they should be that way, but I understand it. I think it is a natural reaction to their position in the world. And it does mean that Serbia is relatively conservative in some ways. Not even necessarily deliberately so, but just because there hasn't been a lot of influence there to change things. I mean, take vegetarianism as an example. I'm a vegetarian. There were not a lot of vegetarian options in Serbia. And the few that are there are kind of underdeveloped because there's not a strong vegetarian scene in Serbia. And that might change. Maybe as time goes by, that'll change. But as of right now, I mean, there is vegetarian food in Serbia, but it's hard to find. One thing in particular that really annoyed me, that really bothered me. If you are a vegetarian who loves pizza, as I am, you need to be very careful with pizza in Serbia because most of the pizza there that looks vegetarian, that looks like it doesn't have any meat on it, has ham under the cheese. This is a common thing that they do in Serbia. It's just their style, I guess. That's how they make pizza. If you have ham pizza, they don't put the ham on the cheese. They put the ham under the cheese. So you'll see what looks like a vegetarian slice of pizza. Maybe it just has cheese, or maybe it has cheese with some mushrooms or vegetables, and you think, oh, vegetarian pizza. No, there's ham under the cheese. This is not unique to Serbia. I had this in Croatia as well. In Croatia, I also mistakenly bought a slice of pizza and then found out it had ham under the cheese after I'd already eaten a couple of bites of it. And one of my coworkers is Polish, and I was talking to him about that, and he said, yeah, this is also common in Poland. So maybe it's not something specifically Serbian. Maybe it's something Slavic. I don't know. I never saw it in Russia, but yeah, I've seen it in the ex-Yugoslavian countries now. So yeah, be careful about that. Most pizza in Serbia that looks vegetarian is not. It has ham under the cheese. In fact, I did not find any pizza. In the whole time I was there, I did not find one single place selling actually vegetarian pizza. Which again isn't to say that such places don't exist. I'm sure you can find it there. I just didn't. And I went to several pizza places and I started asking, hey, is that pizza vegetarian? And they said, no, there's ham under it, so under the cheese. So yeah, it is what it is. But on the other hand, there appears to be a viable vegan movement going on in Serbia. I mean, you saw, if you watch the videos, more than once I saw graffiti that said "Go vegan." I actually saw one shoe store in Belgrade selling vegan shoes, which I don't think I've ever seen advertised anywhere in my life. Certainly wasn't something I was expecting to see in Belgrade. And I mean, nothing wrong with it. I mean, vegan shoes, meaning, not made of leather, not made of any animal products. Sure, why not? Not a bad idea. It's just not something I've ever seen advertised as such before. So yeah, I mean, the Serbs they're nice people. They are thoughtful people. They are considerate people. One thing I should say, a stereotype about Serbs is that they're very criminal. Like, there are a lot of criminal gangs operating in Serbia. It may be the case that there are a lot of gangs there. I mean, I know that factually there are criminal organized crime operations operating in Serbia, but the average Serb is not a criminal or criminally minded person. The average Serb is actually quite community minded. I mean, they think about other people, they consider other people because that's a Slavic thing. That Slavic culture is all about thinking about your social responsibility, your moral social duty toward other people, towards your countrymen. So yeah, Serbs are not, by and large, they're not criminals. They are actually very helpful and conscientious people. But Serbia is changing, and I don't mean it's changing necessarily for the good or the bad. I mean, I guess it's both. Serbia wants to join the European Union, and the Serbian people know very well that something will need to change. There will need to be some political changes, probably some social and economic changes that come with joining the European Union. People are aware of that, and Serbs know that changes are coming. But on the other hand, you can say that maybe it won't change it very much. I mean, yeah, there might be some political changes to the political and economic structure and organization. But I mean, how will everyday life for regular people change? Maybe it won't change it very much. So I don't know. I don't know what the future holds for Serbia. I don't know how the country will change in the next few years. I believe negotiations to join the EU only started a few years ago, and that usually takes at least 10 years. But I mean, 10 years is not that long a time for most people. If you think if you think about the grand scale of history, 10 years is not that long a time. So maybe 10 years from now, we'll see Serbia join the EU, and then who knows what'll happen then? Who knows what'll happen with it after that? But in the meantime, really, again, speaking for myself, and I think for most people, I mean, I don't know, obviously, what other people want or like when they travel, but I think if I speak for the average tourist, if I try to imagine what I know of the typical average tourist who wants to travel in other countries, I just really don't think that Serbia has much to offer a typical tourist who goes there right now. I mean, it's got some nice architecture, but you can find better architecture elsewhere. It has some nice shops and things, but you can find better shops elsewhere. It has nice food and nightlife and things like that, but you can find better stuff in those categories elsewhere. Everything that you can find in Serbia is not bad, but you can get better somewhere else. So why go to Serbia unless you are a Serbian? It's kind of the thing for most of these Balkan countries. I've been to most of the Balkan countries now, and in all of them, I kind of had, like all of them, I had basically the same sense of, this is a country for people who identify with this country. If you personally, ethnically, or culturally, or whatever, identify with this country, then that may give you a reason to go there. But otherwise, for people who don't have any personal connection with that country, what is there really to draw you there? There's not much. I mean, where have I been? A couple of years ago, I went to Bulgaria, and Bulgaria's, it's kind of the same thing. It's a Slavic country in the southeast of Europe. It is in the European Union, but that doesn't really make a big difference. I mean, and you don't notice a huge difference in everyday life there because of that. They don't use the euro money; they still use their own live currency. So I mean, Bulgaria, it's not a bad place. It's kind of the same thing as with Serbia. It's not a bad country. In the east, there's Varna, and I actually quite like Varna. Varna is it's touristy. It's on the Black Sea. It's a city on the Black Sea, and so it's a place for tourists to go and enjoy the beach and the water and things like that. It's fun. I mean, there's not a lot to do in the city, but it's a pleasant city. Had a nice shopping mall. That's one thing that might bring me back there. If I ever go to Varna again, I'll want to go to that shopping mall because I actually like the shopping mall that they had there. But the city center itself, it's a city. It's a normal city. Nothing wrong with it. And then Sofia, the capital. I mean, there's it's not much there. I mean, there's not, in my opinion, not a lot of reason to go there. And then Romania. I've traveled through Romania as well, and again, it's like I don't really see a lot of. Don't see a lot of reason to go there. I have a friend who actually thinks that Bucharest, the capital of Romania, is the greatest city in the world. I don't know why. I don't understand why somebody would think that way, because I didn't really think very much of it, to be honest. But okay, I mean, it's an individual thing. At the end of the day, how you feel about a country is a result of what emotions, what feelings that country arouses in you. And it's very possible that you might go to one of these countries and say, "Wow, I really just this country just strikes a chord with me. It really just makes me feel somehow unique in a way that no other place has ever made me feel." And if you feel that way about a place, then great. I mean, if it works for you, then why not? But I mean, again, I say, I think for most people, you won't find that in Balkan countries. I mean, you can go to Serbia, you can go to Romania, Bulgaria. I know countries like Hungary and Romania don't like to consider themselves Balkan. They don't consider themselves Balkan countries, but they are pretty much. I mean, they're kind of, I mean, you can lump them in the same category. It's all the same thing. All these underdeveloped, poorer countries, which are mostly very unicultural, uniracial, and frankly, happy being that way, who see no need to internationalize. It's the same for all of them. I mean, as an outsider, as a foreigner, as a tourist, what is there really for you? I mean, if you really have a very specific interest in that culture, then sure, why not? But otherwise, I don't really see a lot of reason to go there. So yeah, I mean, I probably will never go back to any of those countries, to be honest. Again, not because my experiences there were so bad, but just because there's nothing that would really call me back there. So, but I did enjoy my time in Serbia. I hope that you enjoyed watching my videos about it. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much all that I had to say about the trip. So if you actually watched all this, thanks for watching, everyone. Sorry that it went so long. I hope that it's been kind of interesting. And yeah, like I said, I will probably be hanging up this channel for a while. Maybe now and then I'll make a video about me talking about something, but I don't really find that there's much point in me just sitting like this talking to the camera for an hour at a time. I mean, not many people watch it, and I think the people who do watch it don't really find it that interesting. So, I mean, I think stuff like this probably works out better in written form anyway. I mean, I'd be better off writing most of the stuff than talking about it in front of the camera. But I made this video in this case because I had already uploaded 4 videos about Serbia, and I wanted to upload kind of a coda to put a cap on it and say, first of all, to explain that at the end my camera broke. That's why I didn't have a proper ending for the last video. And just to say a few thoughts about my trip, and to say that I will probably not be uploading a lot of videos on this channel in the future. So yeah, that's it for me. Thank you for watching again, everyone. I hope that you're all doing well. And yeah, perhaps I will see you, or you will see me, or hear from me later. We'll see. Anyway, I am out of here. Goodbye, everyone. Ta-ta for now.